All right. Thanks. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our second PM Squad Live. Whether you're here in real time, Holly, hello, good to see you. Or if you're watching the replay later, this is exactly how we designed it. It's definitely meant to be something you can kind of pick up and watch later if you can't make it during the workday. So thanks for being here and being a part of this. I'm really excited about this topic today because I think accidental project management is kind of one of the most common and least talked about entry points in our profession. And at same team, if you've read the playbook, you know this, but we look at accidental project management kind of in two ways. Either you stepped into the role without preparation or training, or you're already a PM and you stepped into a project midterm or midstream, and you're expected to kind of like keep it steady. So most of us didn't plan this. We kind of ended up in this role because somebody identified that we were good at the job. Somebody trusted us. Maybe we didn't even know what the job was. And then suddenly we're responsible for momentum, alignment, outcomes without a lot of instruction. So today's discussion, in my opinion, isn't as much about tools and certifications. For me, this is about what it feels like to step into responsibility before you feel totally ready and kind of how you grow into that leadership in real time. So before we jump in, thanks to the other folks who joined. Again, recording this here in Riverside. We're going to take little breaks between just to kind of check and see if any of you have questions and want to jump in. Feel free to jump into the conversation today for sure. I am joined by three people that I respect a lot, friends, industry peers, former coworkers, and people who I think are leaders on kind of different paths. So I'd love to start by having each of you kind of just introduce yourselves, tell us what you're doing now, and then I would love to hear, like, when did you realize you were doing project management? Was it you were hired into a role? Like, what's your kind of origin story? Let's start with Aaliyah.
Hi, hey everyone. So my name's Aaliyah. I've been a project manager in title since about the fall of 2023. Prior to that was I went in a lot of office related roles, office management. Prior to becoming a project manager, I had no idea about the role. I had a friend who knew I was looking for something different. They reached out to me to apply to a position at an agency that they were working at, and I got the job and had the um, opportunity to work with Brett actually, and kind of helped navigate my transition into the role. But prior to that, I just feel like people always respected me and kind of relied on me to improve workflows, um, and help manage different tasks in different types of corporations and businesses. So I kind of found myself here naturally, navigated to being in project management. It's been great and I love it. So I feel like I just fell into the role and it kind of was meant for me, even though I never knew about it before.
Yeah, it totally was. When I interviewed Aaliyah, she told me about her previous jobs and she told me about how she was onboarded to a job and she kind of like got through onboarding in 2 weeks and she was just like super motivated. And I was like, this is interesting. Hired her and she was like up and running so fast, like so confident, just learning. So it's really great to have you here. Thank you. Kelly, would you mind going next?
I'd love to. So, Kelly Vega, I'm currently a program director at VML. And how my origin story looks is I was actually a senior publicist for Sesame Street Live, and I was managing, free publicity around the country, TV, radio. Any kind of social was just starting to become really a bigger thing. So free advertisement, whatever it looked like. And then my friend was over at a dev shop and then she said, "We don't have any project managers. Do you want to be our first project manager?" And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And she was like, "Scope, budget, and timeline." And I was like, "I don't know what scope means." And I went and talked to the owner there and I landed the role because how he heard me talking about managing a number of different things. And my budget is zero. My timeline is how long the cast was in the city. And then, yeah, the scope was getting as much publicity as I could for free. That got me into my first digital and technical PM job. And I've been here since 2013. I love it.
And you probably got to meet Big Bird.
I did. I did. I got to meet all of them, and I have pictures. I was on TV with them a couple times.
I
I
love
can't
that.
complain. It was a
That
fun start.
that's a really cool way into it. Dave, how about you? Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. I feel really old now. So I did not intend to be a project manager. I'm a refugee of the music business. I worked in every part of it and was bad at it. And when I couldn't the last job I had was as an assistant, an administrative assistant for Clive Davis. So if you know who Clive is, that's sort of a big deal. But when I couldn't stand working for Clive anymore, I called a friend of mine at Nickelodeon, and she gave me a job monitoring chat rooms on AOL. So I basically talked about farting and SpongeBob all day long. And that kind of expanded to the part where I was like building games and managing small teams. And then I opened this supply closet, and there was a box on the shelf that said Microsoft Project 4. I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. So I took it down. And after getting out of college and just being like lost and unable to find my place for a long time, I don't know if it's an accident. It's sort of like the job found me. All the dysfunctional upbringing, all the weirdnesses of my personality, the slightly ODD or obsessive compulsive stuff, it all just came together and was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. So it was like I found a home.
So interesting. With as many times as you and I have met and hung out and have had dinner and talked about project management, I cannot believe that I haven't asked you more about Clive Davis. So that is going to be on my mind for next time we get
All right.
together.
It'll take a lot of drinks.
So thanks to everyone who has joined. If you want to jump in with a question at any point, there is a raise hand feature here in Riverside. So if you want to do that, I'll be moderating the conversation and I can call on you. But let's jump in. I think one of the kind of biggest topics that I kind of have been exploring this month with accidental project management is kind of leading without authority and stepping into a role where you're really like responsible for a lot of outcomes and a lot of actions that people take, or at least it feels that way. And it can be really daunting to step into the role to tell someone like, hey, you're not doing the right thing, or why are you missing deadlines, especially when you're more junior. So anyone, feel free to jump in. Like, what has your experience been? What does it look like in your world?
I can go. I have to
Go
do
for it,
this
Dave.
as soon as we finish this recording. I have to go do that with a client. This is going to be really awkward. For me, the whole job, what I kind of discovered about project management beyond the process and all that other stuff is it's at its core, it's really a social engineering job. Like, so that's studying things like body language, emotional intelligence, just human hacking. Like that is what you do every day. And it's about how do I get them to want what I want them to want without telling them what I want them to want. So how do I subtly motivate people in the direction? And that is, I mean, some people would say it's manipulative, but for me, it's like I'm always doing it with good intention. It's always to help them see things they can't see, find things they can't find. Because this job is a job of service. Like you work in service to other people. And I think you have to approach it with that intention. It's not about you getting accolades or praise or being a rock star. It's you helping somebody else do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. What are some ways that you do that?
What, get people to do stuff?
Yeah,
Or-
get people on your
Oh.
side.
So I am a big fan of the art of war. I've been using it since high school to solve all my problems. Like the way other people use the Bible, I use the art of war because even though it's a book that's technically about military theory, it's really a book about negotiation. And so those same practices that apply to warfare, I mean, if I ask Aaliyah for the time, we're negotiating for information. If I'm trying to get somebody to fill out a status report or to do the work that they probably maybe don't want to do, it's all negotiation. And that comes down to you understanding yourself, the person you're negotiating with, and the system you're negotiating in. So studying those things, I think, is what gives you the data you need to be able to figure out how to help the environment find a healthy place.
Yeah, interesting.
Big time. I feel like the difference of just pushing things along and keeping track of different tasks and actually leaning in and learning about what you're doing and asking the right questions, I think that already puts you ahead of so many project managers, whether they fell into the position or sought it, or seeking it out. When you sit down with, a lead engineer, you sit down with a creative head of the creative discipline, and you're understanding the deliverables so that you can better manage them without always just pestering and pushing things one by one. I think that really makes a difference, and it makes it more interesting for our jobs too when we actually really understanding what we're pushing along.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaliyah, I would love to hear your perspective on this, especially because, I saw you come into this role, um, really kind of like not knowing fully what it was, and then stepping into like a really talented but also quiet team
Mm.
in sometimes. And I'm just curious, like how was that for you? How did you navigate that personally?
I think what was pretty helpful for me is that I'm like genuinely a sociable person. So I like to get to know people and talk to them. I mean, when I was younger, I worked in a lot of retail. So I'm having competition with multiple people all the time, mad, happy, sad, whatever. But I think that really helped because I can relate to many different people and many walks of life. And I've had those conversations. And I also don't shy away from having difficult conversations too. Kind of having those one-on-ones to know your team, and navigating and sort of being a chameleon in a way of, how you talk to different people on your team. What do they need from you? And then how can we work together so that like I can get them to do what I need them to do? How much can I trust that person to do what they're gonna do? Those kind of things. Um, I mean, I like talking to people, so I really just no matter what it's about, I don't shy away from conversation and, like, just getting to know people, and that's
I
really
think that's
helpful.
huge. I think that's really big. I think if you're trying to get into project management and people scare you or you don't want to be a people person, then you're not going to be as successful as someone who is willing to kind of put themselves out there a little. And I'll say like people don't believe this, but I'm more of an introvert. So early in my career, it was really hard for me, especially in rooms of executives working with big name clients. Like I would feel really intimidated quite often. So I think it's a real skill and like pardon the language, like kind of a blessing to have that be a part of you, just being a social person who can put yourself out there because I do think it helps a lot. And I actually saw Aaliyah just kind of run with that and really like start to lead culture within a small agency in really interesting ways too. So kudos to you for that. I want to get into a little bit of like the imposter syndrome of it all, because I think, like what I was saying before about like being in rooms with executives can be daunting. I know that I've experienced it. I still experience it sometimes. But as a PM, like when do you feel most in over your head? Dave, is that something you can start out with?
So I'm just laughing because I feel like being like old in Gen X, it didn't have a name back then. So we didn't have
Yeah,
imposter. You just had to
it's
like
true.
suck it up and fake it.
Yeah.
Um,
You're just the low man on the totem pole.
yeah, I mean, I have it all
Too
the
bad.
time. I had it learning about project management. Um, when I moved into Agile and I became a Scrum trainer, like that, I was really bad. I was like the fakey Agile guy. Um, and I still have it now, especially when I talk to AI people. Like I always feel like there's other people that know more, but what I've become, I think, more comfortable with is that I don't, that to me is not like a blinding trigger anymore. It's something I notice like, okay, they know more than me. They might be talking down to me a little bit. That's just information now. So it doesn't rattle me the way that it did in the beginning. In the beginning, I would just try to keep my mouth shut, and I would always say embarrassing things. Like when I look back now, it's like super cringy, but I don't think you can avoid that. You just kind of have to like suck it up and maybe even play into it. Be like, I know I'm an idiot, but tell me more, because then everybody thinks you're an idiot, and you can use that to your advantage.
Oh, playing the idiot. That's an interesting
It's
tactic
one of
at
my
work.
go-tos.
Setting the bar low.
Yeah.
Yeah,
From or
big
like
time.
showing up in those meetings and like
Yes.
putting your game face.
Yes, I think it's honestly those of us who suffer from imposter syndrome, which project manager doesn't? Uh, but I feel like that is kind of like you're coming in, and to your point, Dave, like when I come in on a project, if I can afford it, I'll say I want to kind of absorb things and just be a wallflower for the first week if I can. 2 weeks, great, but usually you can't afford that. And then I'm going to ask my questions, and I'm going to point out again to Dave's point, find out who does know the information, who are the SMEs or subject matter experts in the room, and know that those are who you can lean on and let them know, I look up to you for like teaching me this if you can, or if you can explain this through. And that really creates a trust because they see that you're curious. They see you recognize which team members are supporting where. Um, and it's just how you kind of integrate yourself within without setting yourself up for failure by setting like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to know exactly what to do. I'm going to give you a roadmap by day 2, all the process optimizations by day 3. Like, no, we got to set this up the right way because the biggest effort's up front, right? And then we maintain. So make it worth it. Do it right when you step in.
Yeah.
Ask questions.
How about you, Aaliyah? Any thoughts there? Have you faced imposter syndrome?
I have. I mean, coming into it, I feel like because I don't have any certifications, I kind of feel like maybe people don't, take me as seriously. They don't think I know it. But I have had great opportunities like in the agencies I've worked with that I've always had like a senior project manager or some type of operational director that help like lead me and help guide me. I really try to lead with confidence in everything I do, even if I don't feel super confident. But I always lead also with letting people know that I'm willing to learn things. Like I'm ready to learn, whatever resources you have, please send them my way. I want to get that, learn as much as I can, to make sure that we're all on the same page. And then I also feel it too in the sense that like sometimes you feel like what you're doing is not important or like it's not as useful and people don't understand. But I guess as someone who it's like organization is like innate, I would say for me at least, that when I do that thing, it feels like it's not like I'm not really doing anything. But for someone who is not have any, organizational abilities or just can't keep things on track, to them it's really hard. So it's like kind of two different sides of that where it's like I feel like I'm not really doing anything, but I know I'm doing a lot. I'm confident in what I'm doing, but I could
So
learn
true.
more kind of thing.
It's like if you stop doing those things that you think are not important, then everything would blow up, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
that's like the old adage, right? Like if you
Hmm.
can see project management, there are problems. If you can't, everything's working out very well.
Right.
Which kind of sucks sometimes, right? Because we also don't necessarily get the recognition for the role that you might expect to get, especially if you stepped into this role from something that was a little bit more visible, you know? Like
Okay.
I know personally, I stepped into project management in like as like a writer and editor. So I always had something that was like central to the project at the end. I just was managing the project and the designers on top of like my own process. So I had like a creative output that I collaborated on, was excited about. When I formally moved into project management and my output was like a project plan and status reports, I was like, oh crap, this isn't as fun as I thought it would be. And that's honestly like, that's why I started doing some writing on the side because it was like, oh, I gave up, like, I got really tired of the writing I was doing also. So it's not like I just like made this switch in and just like left it. But I wanted that creative outlet and that was important to me. And I feel like having that creative outlet and that experience as a writer allowed me to have empathy for the people delivering the work in some ways that I'd seen other project managers not do it. And I think that's a benefit of some of us being accidental PMs is like, we know what it's like to do the work. We know how stressful it can be. And we really respect someone who is organizing things for us. Even currently, like with Same Page, I'm doing the project management and the content creation and delivery. And of course, I'm working with Greg, who couldn't be here today. Um, it's a lot. But if I didn't do it, we would not deliver any of the stuff that we're delivering, you know? Um, one of the things that I want to like make a little bit of a pivot. One of the things that we kind of talked about this month in our blog posts to the members is about the moment when you realize that there's like misalignment or there is a risk that maybe you saw that all of a sudden is going to turn into an oh shit moment. And to me, this is one of the places where accidental PMs don't necessarily know how to step in because it's a moment of, it's not necessarily a moment as much as a series of moments, right? Like a thing happens and that's your first flag that scope might be slipping. And then things start to spiral. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, we are weeks and months behind. We are way out of money. Like, and I think accidental PMs stepping into a job, like they're not trained to track timelines and budgets in the way that a really a formally trained PM is. So does anyone have just any tips on how to call out those issues earlier, how to find those issues? Like this feels like really material to people who are like trying to manage all the things and also deliver at the same time. It's the longest question I've ever asked in my
I mean,
life.
I have like
Oh.
I think you have to like perfect the art of being subtle, if
Say
you
that
don't mind.
again.
Perfect the art of being subtle.
Mm.
So being like if something is coming up, like being well, always going back to like what the scope was and kind of saying it, but not being annoying about it. And be like, well, you're asking this, so let me double check. Or like we're getting, we're doing this thing, but let me know there's this much time left. Like we spent this much time on this thing, but it's like the art of being subtle and like and being annoying without being annoying.
And what you're saying too, it sounds like, is not saying yes right away.
Yeah.
Taking time to think about it. Yeah, I think that's
Mhm.
a good one. Kelly or Dave, any thoughts there?
Yeah. I think from the start, having a steady status, when like I always do one executive status per project client I'm on once a week. Sometimes it's every other week, depending on how things go. But even if it's mundane, because then you're using that status as one documentation. But as soon as something starts to feel a little iffy, call that out at the very top of the risk. And I think how you start to sense that for me is first, point blank, if people are starting to say different things and have a different understanding of what a status is or the urgency of a matter. Or speaking of urgency, if the size of the urgency doesn't match like the volume of the client or the how the team is responding, that's a communication issue. Like people should know priorities, impact, upcoming risks, not just when it smacks us in the face. So it's all boils down to communication, right?
Yeah,
So,
usually it does. I agree. I see Patty, you have your hand up. What's up?
oh, you're muted, Patty.
I'll unmute you.
Okay, there we go. I have a question for you, Kelly, because I
Yes,
think that's a
please.
really, or anyone really, but you were just talking about your executive summary. I've tried to use that method, that vehicle for
Mhm,
calling out potential landmines, if you will, or
mhm,
maybe we're a little off course. And I've found more times than not, someone's gotten pissed off that I've done that
hmm,
because if I'm posting it to a like to the project management tool for people to look at,
mhm,
or I'm sending it directly to an executive, somebody's getting called out.
mhm.
And
Right,
so and it's frequently my experience, not the individual contributor's fault. It's frequently
right,
senior manager's fault, right?
right.
Like the supervisors. And I'm not sure I've ever worked with a team that were singularly focused,
Mhm,
right?
right.
Their time is usually divided and
And many plates, yes.
and issues come up and I'm sort of calling these things out in as gentle and a way as possible.
Mhm.
And someone's getting pissed off. I've alienated somebody because I feel like they're being called out.
Sure, sure. Well, I think accountability is hard for anybody, right?
Mhm.
Even ourselves, if there's a slip up that we've made with adjusting a date or something. But if there is some sort of like if you're doing an executive status, somewhere on that status, those phases or deliverables would be tracked, even at a high level. Whatever it is that you're reporting on a status, red, yellow, green, and in theory, that thing that's slipping would fit in one of those categories. And as soon as you're starting to call that out as a note related to that, with the ambiguity, let's say this is just, yes, you're waiting on finance to approve something, and it needs to get through different steps, and there's different people that need to be followed up on, and you have one point person. Well, as soon as that slips, then a chain of people might get upset with you that you're calling that out. But really, you're saying, let me know how I can help. Where can I support? As soon as you offer that, that's all you can do is communicate and then support. And what is blocking you, right? So if you can afford to have a stand up with these people, if it's at the executive level, less likely, or maybe it's mid level, whatever, but having the stand up so that you can regularly find out from people, what are you working on? What's blocking you? How can I help if you are blocked? What other questions, right? Communication again. And I know not everyone has all the time because people are working on so many different things. So you can't afford that. Well, then it's the agreed, like, okay, weekly, I'm sending this status. Please, everyone, your role this week is to acknowledge that status, your action items. And as soon as something bubbles up, we have a thread at least to look back on and not to point fingers, but to just like help each other get to the end goal.
Can I yes and that a little bit?
Yes, please.
So part of what I try to do is to establish my role up front with people and say, look, I'm here to manage the project. I'm not here to make you happy. I promise you that I will never lie to you. I promise you that I will only base predictions on things I can prove, history and math. Like that's it. And when situations happen where I have to because I'm in this right now, like there's a thing that's not happening that I know is the most important thing for this business. And the guy who's in charge of it is just like waving his hands in the air. I have a choice. I can either help them hide it, or I can say, like, look, I'm here to be the impartial guy. I'm here to say, like, you said this is going to be delivered for the last 8 weeks. You still have made no progress. If you're mad, I can't help that. I'll try to help you. But like, this is what's going on. We have to let people know. And it doesn't take the sting away. But if I can get to that person before we have whatever meeting and say, listen, this is going to come up. You need to be ready for it because it's going to be a thing and it's going to look like you didn't do your job or, whatever. And then maybe, like Kelly said, work with them to come up with some solution, some way of covering it. But what I found when Brett was asking the question, what kind of popped into my head was the difference between me when I was 24 and the difference and now. At 24, I had a job where I gained like 50 pounds and got an eye twitch because I didn't know how to deal with that.
Right.
And I've learned the hard way that, like, you know what? I'm not going to carry that home with me. That's your mess. It's here you go. Like
that resonates for me hugely. That 24, 27, I had a job where I, I was the writer, I was managing a website, I was managing print and web projects and writing at the same time. And I had a boss who just made life miserable. I would go home every day with a headache. And believe it or not, that's the job that I left to take a PM job. Really found my focus, actually found my focus and was
Amazing.
less stressed because it was what I was meant to be doing, I
Yeah.
think. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. I agree with what Kelly said earlier. It's hard for people to be accountable. And a lot of what we have to do and a lot of the tough conversations we have to have are about accountability. I think, Dave, and you're about to experience this, it sounds like, I think it's hardest with a client or a higher ranking stakeholder. Again, to kind of get back to the authority aspect of it. Yeah, how are you preparing yourself for that? Outside of going around the corner and saying, hey, by the way, we're going to have a conversation later.
The hardest part for me is to not judge the guy. So I'm looking at him like, you suck at your job. Like that's what's in the back of me. You're just not up to this task.
Right.
But what you have to remember is there's a system this person works in. So I have to think about them as a person, where they worked before, what their experience is in, what constraints are being placed on them. I mean, they went from a really big, huge company to a really small, slightly dysfunctional startup where they don't have things they're used to having.
Yeah.
So having a little bit of empathy for that, and at the same time being like, okay, dude, you came to work without pants on. Can we get you some pants? And if they're like, I have pants on, I'm like, you don't though. It's like holding up the mirror, but also at the same time saying I'm here for you. There's no way that that's not awkward. But my choice is I can either go along with the delusion, in which case I'm not serving the client or the company, or I can take the slightly uncomfortable stance and point out what's going on and say up front, hey, I'm going to do something that's going to make you all uncomfortable right now, but this is what's going on. This is what I see. If they don't want to acknowledge it, I can't fix that. But if I can get them to see it, maybe we can make it better. And that when I'm done with them, when I'm done with this company, that's what I want them to remember, that I stood up and called out the thing that they were all working so hard to not acknowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the role, right? It's like riding the line between being seen as someone's partner in crime and being the police officer who's calling it all out. It's like
You're a
I
vigilante, project
yeah.
vigilante.
Well, somebody's audio just went crazy. Oh, it was Kelly's. I just muted you for a second. That was random. Yeah, I just wrote an article on my site yesterday, a love letter to project managers who overthink everything. And for me, that was kind of a focus. It's like, yeah, it's really hard in those situations to be the person who is like cool and wants everything amazing to come out of like a kickoff meeting or a blue sky brainstorm or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? But then a few weeks down the road, that's when you figure out, oh, okay, I guess I actually need to put some constraints around this. Like that's really tough. And I think for me, like Dave, you hit it the nail on the head. Like it's not a little bit of empathy. It's going into this with a lot of empathy. And I think what people don't realize is that the best project managers are constantly reading the room, constantly looking for what people's reactions look like, how people are interacting or not interacting with them. Like there are so many signs that we read that impact the way that we approach even like the most minor Slack exchange. Like it's insane. Like I feel like
We all
I'm
need
overthinking
therapy.
things all the time, always.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. From like as much of an emoji reaction from the client versus a response. And you're like, did you catch that? Did you know how they usually respond? And you'll be like, I'm picking up on something. It can be just that small, right?
Yeah. Like Dave said, overthinking everything is our job.
Like, did you see the way he touched his face? Did you see that? You know what that means? Yeah.
It can be the worst.
But
And
that's our superpower. It's our dysfunctional superpower.
do you think that's the thing that unites the people who are accidental PMs and people who are more like steady trained PMs?
I feel like
Could
everybody who
be.
becomes a project manager is messed up one way or another.
I agree. And I think any good PM needs experience with this kind of craziness to get to a place where like you just regulate, like you're okay. You know that this stuff happens and it doesn't, you become unflappable at some point. My last big project explosion was one where the team I was working with, we fired the client. And I was a part of wanting to fire the client. Could talk about that for a second. Basically, what happened was it was a team of contractors. We were hired by this really big, kind of prestigious organization to do a website redesign for them. They came to our meetings disorganized. They were really not they were lying to themselves and to us when it came to stakeholder mapping and responsibility. We got into scheduling stakeholder interviews, and that was when they basically admitted that they didn't have a project manager and they expected me to manage them internally. So that was like the first flag of these people are not ready for this project and they don't know what project management is. And then it really just came down to them disagreeing with what they needed internally and us telling them they needed another project and we were ending the project. And for me as the PM, like there's a lot in there rolled up for me. It's like I was involved in the biz dev process, so I should have seen these things earlier. You know, there was kicking this thing off and it going smoothly, going through stakeholder mapping and it going smoothly, and maybe not questioning enough. Like there's these things as a PM, even when you have experience, like red flags are going up in my head, but they're going up half mast, right? And then all of a sudden they all appear out of nowhere and it's like a bunch of red flags flying behind you. Like I can just imagine it. It's like, now what do I do? And I feel like it just happens. Like I see it happen to project managers all the time. And I do think like I want to sit here and say there are ways to avoid that because I think there are, but sometimes it just happens. Do you all agree with me on that?
Totally. Totally. I feel like even in a project I was recently on, it's like uh, the part that we all anticipated would be the slow red tape part. Like, okay, brace yourselves. This is where we're gonna. And then in the meantime, it wasn't until like the step after that that slowed us down with just like some legal review stuff that was all fine and dandy, but we had no anticipation of that. And suddenly all the flags are up and we're up against a deadline that it's like we were sitting. And it again, like, you couldn't have anticipated it unless it was, yeah, months prior. Anyways,
It's
it
even worse
happens.
when
It's how you
you
react.
it's even worse when you're doing the job and you're focused on doing a really good job
Mhm.
and you call out all of those flags and everyone ignores them anyway, and you
Yeah.
still end up looking like the bad guy. That
C-
also has happened to me.
Can I ask a follow-up question to the first part of it?
Of
So
course.
when that happens to me, there's this voice in the back of my head that's like, you suck. If you were paying attention, you totally would have seen all this stuff. So that thing about overthinking, you clearly are not overthinking enough. Like, how do you shut that voice off? Because maybe, yeah, you couldn't possibly have seen it, but I'm always like, it's my fault. Should have seen it.
Yeah, I think that's part for me, and please anyone else jump in here, but for me, that's one of the hardest parts. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've cried over project work in the past. Like clients have made me feel like absolute utter garbage.
Yeah.
And I've stuck with projects and have had to see them through with people who I think are just horrible. Um, so it can be really hard. I think at this point, it is a matter of having the confidence to admit when you've done something wrong, when you've made a mistake, because guess what? We're all effing human beings and everyone makes a mistake, and projects are not just on the project manager's shoulders. Everyone's responsible for a positive outcome. So it's that. And it's again, like I think this came up earlier, being able to leave it at home. Like, yeah, you made a mistake. Yeah, you might feel like you're bad at this for the day or whatever, but you will move on
Oh, that's a
and
good point.
you'll handle
Mhm.
the next situation better because you learned your lesson from that one. Like my whole
Big time.
career is a series of fuck ups
Like,
and
Yep.
lessons learned.
that'll learn you.
Yeah,
That's
learn.
the most experience I've ever gained are in the times that were the hardest, and no, do I would I recommend anyone to dive into those scenarios? No, but they just happen, and that's when my growth, like, I have a growth spurt from it because 'cause I'm like, "Whoa, yeah." So,
I agree with that. And you
yeah,
feel that growth spurt through confidence.
big time. And then
Yeah.
you get on the other side, and then something comes up that is even tangentially related later on, and you're like, "I have an example of where this didn't work out, what was better, and how we could," that's how we grow.
Seen
That's
that movie before. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Patty,
Curious. I'm curious if anyone has ever started out a large project and acknowledged what the definition of done is, acknowledged what finished looks like, right? Whether it's a sprint or whether it's an entire project, or in this case, maybe an entire project. And then in the very beginning of the project, if anyone's tried going around the room and asking people, okay, say what you do in this project and let us know what you're going to do to make sure this project, you wouldn't use these words necessarily, but in essence, what you're going to do to make sure this project doesn't fail. Like, what is going to be your safety net here? And how are we going to look at you and really use your contributions to um, make this project go swimmingly well? Like, has anyone, I've never done that. I only thought about that when Dave was just talking. And I'm like, huh. So if we're acknowledging that we don't know everything, well, then certainly between all of us, we know a whole hell of a lot. And who is everybody sitting here and what role are they going to play in making sure this project goes fabulous? Has anyone done that?
Yes.
in
Oh,
kickoff, yes. In kickoff meetings, yes. I will say then there is like an extended set of stakeholders who don't make it to kickoffs or whatever meetings, and they're the ones who come in, swoop and poop and ruin everything. Not always. But yeah, I mean, I think the other part about that, Patty, is like, yeah, you can do that. And then people lose sight of those comments that were said early on or things that they seemingly kind of like signed up for and were accountable for for. And then, especially in client services, when you're dealing with clients who like the project you're working on with them is like one of 15 priorities in their workday. Like, there's just so much that we really hang on to when it comes to like holding clients accountable for things. To me, it really does come down to like being a broken record and reiterating things in almost every meeting and communication that are important.
I think in this case, I was almost talking more internally because
Mhm.
you can only control so much what the clients do. And ultimately, if there's a project plan and they're not getting their reviews, and they're documentable things. But it's really, I think I was thinking more of the internal team to
Okay.
say the words out loud, right?
But would you trust them? Like, I don't,
Right.
if I was like, tell me what you're going to do. And like, I'm going to do everything possible. Like, you're not going to do jack. And they have a role. They see themselves in a role. There's this really voice in my head that I want to just tell to shut up, but I can't. And it's that the people on my team are like instruments that I have to learn to play. I have to get all these instruments to make music together to get this work done. So you can announce and tell me what you are, and I understand something about your self-perception or your response to power in the room. But it's only when we work together that I actually see who you are and what you do. So
It gives you
uh,
a baseline though, does it not? Like
maybe, maybe.
if the system engineer says my job in this particular project is to ensure that, you know, um XYZ, and you say that out loud and you put that sort of however in writing or whatever documentation, and then 6 weeks later that's not happening, then you have
Yeah,
something to go back to and say, "Hey,
you're not doing your job.
you said
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
right?" So you never have to use the words, "You're not doing your job." You said this, and this is what's happening. So let's talk about this messy middle part where things
yeah.
aren't going on. I don't know. I'm being a little off the cuff here, but
Well, are you then responsible for helping that person rise up to that, or swapping them if they can't do it?
well, hopefully rising up. Hopefully, like others have said, it's the accountability. It's how can you discuss accountability? What can you lean on for those conversations? And what can you construct in the beginning that gives you that framework that you can go back to besides just a project plan, right?
Mhm.
Or a whole board of JIRA tickets that makes everybody want to throw up when they look at it. Like, you know?
I mean, I've always found that like just the internal kickoffs were really helpful. Like when you have your project plan, you're presenting it to the internal team that we're actually putting down on paper in some sort of documentation, whether it's like the project status on who's the lead of each phase. And I know that accountability can be difficult in certain situations, but I think that also speaks to like the agency you're working with and what their sort of culture is around expectations and if everyone's following those expectations. Because I typically don't, and most of the agencies I work for, it's been very clear and most people are very accountable for what they're doing. And there's no confusion on who's doing what. So I guess it just depends on the agency and the other people you're working with as well.
Yeah.
And I would say less about like the assignments themselves, or I guess the roles themselves. If you're having like any sort of ticketing system or task management system that you're having the task list out, I think the task assignments themselves is like, because we have people in roles that flex into other roles, right? Like a PM might flex into QA and BA. Sorry if I touch my microphone. Or a tech lead might go into dev review and this and that. So I feel like as long as the tasks are there somewhere, if you're not in a ticketing system, a shared spreadsheet, right? Let's get as rudimentary as we can. And there's just a name by every task and the outcome of that task. The other thing I will say is that coming in midway on a big marketing technology campaign project, in this big effort of process optimization, I was able to boil it down to acceptance criteria was what the tickets needed. That was the only missing piece, at least to like thrust the whole team forward, because people were getting caught up in QA and the client review and what was given at intake. And it was like, by intake, I want acceptance criteria on every single ticket, and that will iron out so many hangups along the way. So, same thing. What is the definition of done? Just like you said. So, if you have those tickets, have the assignments, and they all have acceptance criteria, that can get rid of a lot of the wrinkles.
Yeah, I think
Hopefully.
it's creating those boundaries, right? It's creating these little like micro processes and expectations within the work that we do that really get people aligned to their roles. I know Kelly in chat, you also mentioned like a RACI chart, and
Yes.
I feel like a lot of people talk about RACI charts and they're a good exercise to do at the beginning of a project.
Yes.
I wonder what happens in like scenarios like Patty's talking about where things go off the rails and people are not meeting expectations. Like, have you ever
Yeah.
gone back to the RACI chart and been like,
I
hey, look
have.
at this line item? Because that's
I
basically what
have.
Patty's saying. Yeah,
I
tell us
have.
about that.
And the beautiful thing about a RACI chart is I don't care who you are, people care when their name is on something and
Yeah,
if it's associated to something. So they might not think they care it exists, but until you say, "Oh, I put this together, your name's on it, you're tagged," they're gonna go to that and be like, "Wait, what am I being expected to do?" And, what is it? Responsible, accountable, communicate, and informed, or is that what the
consulted,
C is?
informed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And really, that can be across. It doesn't have to. I've seen really complicated ones. If you just have that grid and you plot both the clients in their own and then your internal team in their own. And I have pointed back, and what that was like was actually I pointed back to a racy that was there before my time, and what was going on in the process wasn't matching that, and they said, "Well, our process has evolved." So I said, "Great, even better reason, let's refresh it,"
Yeah.
because the client has that still. That's what they're looking at. So if anything bubbled up, that's what they're gonna say they're looking at. So let's get this updated, and it can be the team can, rumble mumble while they're going to the racy meeting, but it's just 1 hour, and we're gonna
Right.
agree on it, it's gonna be done, and then
Right.
we all feel better. So, you know, I think it's great.
I agree. I think it helps people, especially like when you're on a larger team. You know, I've been on teams where there are a couple of designers or a few designers where it could be confusing as to who really should be doing what.
Yes.
It just helps to clarify in that
Yes.
way. And if we can give our teams that kind of clarity, it just makes their job easier. It makes them
Yes.
more confident and secure in the work that they're doing. So, yeah,
And
I'm
even
on board.
And even one time, I remember we came across like a slide about the team structure that was presented to the client at the beginning of the year, and we realized there was a role that we weren't filling that was like, oh, this is valid. And it was in the budget, and it was like, where's this role? We like filled the gap. It was, something tertiary, but it still was helpful. And again, it's just a reason to be like, oh, because we were thinking this way at this time, and things can evolve on their own real fast.
Yeah, totally.
So
Yeah, they do.
they do.
They always do. So we're coming up to kind of the end. I want to ask all three of you one kind of like final question. Like the whole idea here is that, accidental doesn't mean unqualified, right? It usually means that you stepped into something when that thing needed to move. And that's kind of, in my opinion, how project leaders are made. It's like you step up, you figure it out. And for some folks, it's stepping in and just organizing, and they have no idea what's going on. So I'm just curious, like, what is one of three things? What is a thing an accidental PM should stop doing? What is a thing they should start doing? Or what's a skill that matters more than people think to project management? I'll start with Kelly. Go ahead.
Ooh, okay. Just see me inhale. I would say, stop asking for permission so much.
Ooh, good one.
So you don't stop asking for permission for everything because there are things you should ask permission to do, but don't ask for it so much for the things that you're like, ooh, do they mind if I make the Gantt chart in this tool or this tool? Well, if both tools exist, pick one, do it, run with it, do it you're more comfortable in. Should I schedule this conversation with this person or are they a little bit above? Send them the invite. They'll decline if they don't want to go.
Mm.
Don't second guess yourself as much. I would say start meeting one-on-one with the people you work with. Doesn't have to be on a repeated basis. For some, it should be. But I think start just having a quick 15, 30-minute conversation instead of let's like live in teams and Slack threads and breakouts and stuff. Like that's where, yes, we should be, but start talking to your team more
Yeah.
like
Like
this
10
as
years
much
ago,
as
we would be like, pick up the phone.
please,
But
please,
now it's
inflection is
video.
there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Totally.
just
I
reading
agree.
text. Yeah, and then skills that matter than most people think. Mm, I think context switching.
Mm.
Context switching, because even if you're fully allocated on one project or program, you know you're bouncing between different people on the project, different communications between client facing and now internal client facing documentation, internal documentation, vendors and what have you. So I think the context switching is under what is it? It's just not as recognized as much.
Yeah, it's
But
not as appreciated. Like, people talk about context switching all day long. I mean, every time I consult with a team, there's like, "There's too much context switching." I'm like, "You haven't even talked to your PMs."
you don't even know.
PMs are, like, masters of it.
Right, and we protect our team from it, right? But no one's
Exactly.
protecting us from it. Mhm.
Exactly, yeah. Aaliyah, what's one thing an accidental PM should stop doing, one thing that they should start doing, and a skill that you think is more valuable than people think?
Kelly had quite a few like really good points. Like everything she said, I agreed with as well. Um, yeah, I do agree with like to stop doing second guessing yourself. That also goes along with like what you should start doing more of is being more confident in what you know and what you feel. Um, Even if you don't think it's important, flag it, say it. If something's, even if a agency's been doing something for a long time, that doesn't mean it's the right thing. And that your experiences are also important and can be valuable to an agency to help things be improved. So, like being confident in what you know, but also be understanding of the things you don't know, and like kind of taking that initiative to ask more questions and be present. Also, getting to know your team as well, and having more of those like little conversations in the beginning of meetings to get to know either your internal team or clients. I find that that's really helpful, especially with clients or people that think or like clients that seem difficult. I always find out that they're not difficult at all. I guess that goes with me being a people person. I can find something in common with almost anyone or, have something to talk about. Just being more confident in what you know and being open to knowing more too and finding out more.
Love it. Yeah, clients are and high-level stakeholders, they're like school teachers to little kids, like, they're actually real human beings. You can talk to
Hmm.
them, and they're nice people. Yeah.
Right. Everyone's not scary, no matter what their title is.
Thank you for that. Dave, what should PMs stop doing, start doing, and a skill that you think matters? Oh, you're muted. Are you muted?
I
Yes.
was
There you
muted.
go.
Yeah. They should stop trying to be in control. You're not really in control of anything. And I think when you approach your job from that perspective, it sets you up for failure. You are responding to a wave. You're not controlling the wave. I think they should start seeing themselves from a systems point of view as systems of service. So your first job, people say put your oxygen mask on first. You have to optimize yourself so you can show up for others.
Mhm.
So find ways to understand what things you have to do every day to be able to be there in the right frame of mind to be what people need you to be. And the last thing is something that happened on a project where this guy on a project was like a complete waste of human space. And I was talking to him one day, looking at him thinking like, you suck. And I looked on his desk and there were pictures of his kids. And I thought, okay, these kids think this guy is Batman, right? So everybody that you work with, no matter how awful they are, somebody thinks they're Batman. And even the villain of the story thinks they're like Darth Vader thinks he's Luke Skywalker. They all think they're the hero. So nobody's getting up trying to screw with you, no matter how bad they seem, no matter how much they get in your way. They're making the best choice they can with every moment of their lives. And maybe the things around them are putting them in a collision course with what you're trying to do, but you have to recognize them as people that are doing their best with every moment. And I think you have a responsibility to show up for them with that in mind.
That. What a great way to end this panel. Thank you so much. And thank you, all three of you, for joining. Everyone who's here, thank you for joining
Yes.
to talk about this work. I love talking about the parts of the work that usually are invisible. And I think we did a lot of that today. And the candor that you brought is, I think, really useful to everyone. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us
Thanks for
live.
having us.
Things like this. If something resonated with anyone today, like my advice is don't just nod and move on. Take one small behavior back into your work this week, like one conversation that you'll approach differently, one moment where you'll slow down instead of pushing through. Like that's really what we're here for. So, again, really grateful to be building this space with everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Cool. Thanks.